Okay, so I'm going to make a quick video just describing basics using this little thingy here. Okay, so I noticed some things happening with the media, of course. I can do some stories about it, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave out some basics, and these are like kind of what my videos are about, because I'm going to take some of them down because there's just a lot of them. So anyways, for example, I saw like one of the outer opened images using Hannibal feeds Paul his own brains. Okay, now you're not gonna think this, but with the Syria thing, the only crime in marketing is to say something is not happening when it is. Like, that's important for people to know. Like, that's big. That was the whole Syria thing. So, like, for example, I'm going to use an example. Okay, so Soylent Green. Okay, the Bible will always bring it down to, like, believe me when I say this, that they changed the Old Testament, so it'll come down to birds that eat or bugs or something like that. And then you have Soylent Green. So, like, for example, this is a real experience. I was up here for a short period of time in between, and then I noticed that there was, like, you know, I went to a thrift store, but next to the thrift store, they put up a soy patch. Not very big, but, you know, like they were harvesting or making soy. That's gone. Like, they put it right next to a thrift store, and they took away the whole entire bean patch. They didn't put up anything, but they got rid of it. And I was thinking to myself, why? We don't really eat that much soy. And there's this whole thing about it. And I'll get into that when I get about down here. Okay? So, the pink fluid, which is the media, it's the name of the wife, that is Moses. They left their culture. Like, she didn't have a culture. So when you start seeing, like, when it's a culture, when they, you know, absorb Exodus into a culture thing, then you'll see colors change. Her name was, it was not a culture, a race. Her name was basically the middle, the medium. And this is why you'll find, like, when people try to get down to the angels and stuff, they're always trying to pull out the name Michael so that they have control over media. And that's the pink fluid in there. You'll get a good example of this is the owl video and people stabbing. They got heroin horror. That's pretty much all they work on. It's just absolute horror. And they basically want that to try to scare because they don't know how to deal with this part. This part is basically starts from somewhere, whether it's in the world or someplace. It's animal perverseness, freaking vaccines, whatever you want to call it. Then, you know, they have child calls, and sometimes they're not children, sometimes they're workers, and sometimes they're just groups of accusers, and they start messing with people's main brain. And you'll be back to here when it's drugs and people can't understand what's going on, and all they hear is like people imitating children or something like that. So what happens is, for example, it's basically it's animal perverse, then it's child calls, and sometimes they're not child. And you know how the Bible goes, like children calling out in the marketplace, okay? Like children calling out in the market, okay? But these two things happen first, then they invert Christ, okay? Then they do it. It's not like, oh, the simple things, like, you know, you're all simple-minded sometimes. Everybody is, including myself. You enter in as a child into the kingdom of God, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But they do this first, then they invert Christ. And then it's like children calling at the market. Then it's like enter in as a little child, which is not how it's supposed to be. So, then... and even if you go, nowadays, even if you go online because you're kind of worried about this stuff and check things out, like your name is like in there, even if you're checking against it. And even the person that you check against it for ends up like probably getting harassed by a couple of these groups. this one right here, and then the ones that do it, you know, they probably walk. I don't know. But anyways, because it gets so confusing, and that's why they do it. They do that first, then they invert Christ. So this one right here will bring you, this up here. Somebody's here.